Chaos Space Marine warbands dedicated to Khorne are the worst military force to encounter if you are part of the Imperium of Man. At least with the other factions, there's a possibility of switching sides. If it's a Plague Marine warband, you could accept Nurgle and become a grotesquely happy individual for the rest of your life. If it's Slaanesh, you take a bump of that good dope, grow a new set of boobs, and then seek perfection in all of its forms. Even the worst case scenario with Tzeentch, you just get turned into a chaos spawn. But with Khorne, if you decide to join a Berserker warband, you still get your ass beat, because that's what Khorne is all about, fighting. And with that said, I want to welcome you guys back to another 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and today we're going to be talking about different Khorne Berserker warbands. If you guys are new to the channel, we post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you guys have suggestions for any topics, please let me know what they are in the comment section below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon, link down in the description below. It's just $1 a month. If not, just by liking, commenting, and sharing, it really does help out the channel. So thank you guys ahead of time. But with all that said, let's get into some Khorne warbands. Let's start with the Khorne warband known as the Ravagers, which was first observed by Imperial forces engaging in hit-and-run raids on the Tau colony world of Salamine, located in the Segmentum Ultima. It was adjacent to the Damocles Gulf. They were notorious for attacking Imperial convoys within the Salamine system until the warband was unexpectedly caught between the Imperial Navy fleet and a Tau colony world. Sustaining heavy casualties, the Ravagers somehow managed to make good of their escape into the warp towards the projected destination of the world of Tenebree. After arriving in system, the Ravagers sustained further losses to their fleet from the Imperial Navy flotilla that had stationed itself in orbit, but several of their forces still managed to make planetfall. The Ravagers attacked several different sites on the planet, but were repelled by a combined Imperial Guard force composed of Talaran Desert Raiders and Valhallan Ice Warrior regiments, led by the Imperial hero Commissar Caiaphas Cain. The Imperial forces soon came to realize that they had been caught between two rival factions of the Forces of Chaos. The Ravagers were actually on the Imperial world in order to disrupt the Slaaneshi cult from summoning a greater demon from the warp and turning the Imperial planet into a demon world. The Ravagers were only attacking apparent ritual sites in order to disrupt the cult from achieving their dark goals. The Imperial forces were able to determine where the final cult ritual was to be held and immediately deployed their troops in order to halt it. The Ravagers had also figured out the location of this ritual and teleported a large force of Khorne Berserkers into the same area to slay the servants of the Prince of Chaos. Attacking simultaneously, the Valhallans led by Commissar Cain managed to follow the attacking Chaos Space Marine forces as they smashed their way through the cult's inadequate defenses. Unfortunately, they were unable to halt the ritual from reaching fruition, and the Slaaneshi cult summoned the greater demon Emily Dubois. Somehow, Cain managed to defeat the demon after shooting her in the head with a las pistol, banishing her corrupted spirit back into the warp. The Commissar then called an artillery barrage to obliterate the location of the ritual, and the remaining Chaos faction was completely destroyed. It is believed that the rest of the Ravagers' Chaos Space Marines that were scattered across the planet were defeated by the Imperium's military forces. One of the deadliest heretical Astarte warbands that haunts the Imperium in the Segmentum Pacificus is known as the Tenebree. They are notorious for launching raids from their unknown lair in the Veiled region. Amongst the dense nebulae, and alongside discarded stellar matter, the Tenebree wait for foolhardy rogue traders, or hopeful colonists that attempt to tame this unmapped region of space. The origin of this Chaos warband is a complete mystery to the few Imperial savants with knowledge of their existence. The few gathered scraps of data point to the warband falling to Chaos Undivided in the few centuries following the end of the Horus Heresy. Their ancient and tattered war gear shows extreme signs of damage, and a peculiar dust purple seems to be their old livery. They also have no visible iconography, making their Legion badge a complete mystery. Their warband name is actually the ancient Terran Latin word for darkness, which might represent the veiled region of space where these heretics found safety after Horus's defeat on Terra and the retribution enacted by the Loyalist legions. However, some inquisitors with knowledge of the region's history point to the ancient and still practiced ceremony by the same name. The Tenebree rite, or practice, was a ceremonial mass performed a couple of days before the Emperor's ascension to the Golden Throne. This ancient rite was created by the Emperor-worshipping cults that formed after the heresy, and eventually became part of the Adeptus Ministorum. It has been noted that a few Space Marine chapters that were sent to defend the Imperial border to the Veil region eventually grew to worship the God Emperor of mankind. and adopted many of the religious practices of the people. It is believed that the Tenebree might have betrayed the Imperium, and as an act of blasphemy to the Emperor, taken on the name of the ancient rite that venerated the Emperor's sacrifice. The truth might never be known, however. What is known is a long history of violence towards the Imperium. The earliest surviving records point to the infamous Hour of Shadow, which plunged the hive world of Loren Alpha into murder and madness in the 33rd millennium, and whose anniversary is still marked by sorrowful mournings 7 millennia later. These records, which are culled from the archives of the Blackwing Space Marine chapter, speak of the Tenebree invading the hive planet and slaughtering untold millions as they pillaged the world for resources and slaves. When the loyalist Black Legion arrived, the Tenebree fought a retreating battle and were chased by the Space Marines. The Warband managed to make it to the Veiled region, where the Imperial pursuers went missing. 3 standard centuries later, a single damaged Blackwing strike cruiser returned bearing only a handful of survivors. It was recorded that the chapter master of the Blackwings was slain during this conflict. Although the Warband was already hated and reviled before the atrocity, the Ordo Malleus of the Inquisition and the Blackwing chapter have sworn an oath of vendetta against the Tenebree. Records of the Tenebree renegade warband wouldn't exist until the early 41st millennium, in the event known as the Death of the Witch Moon, when the forged moon of Kazaya in the strategically vital Agathon system fell into an unnatural eclipse when its population was driven to murder and madness in an endless night of horror. The dreaded forces of the Tenebree and the Company of Misery reigned as dark kings amidst the nightmare, and the baleful light of the Witch Moon spread calamity and warp-tainted phenomena wherever it fell, threatening the entire star system. The first Imperial attacks by the Astra Militarum took the form of squadrons from Battlefleet Ultima and the Inquisition, but they were hurled back in tatters by the madness of the Black Light and the warp-fueled savagery of their defenders. It is only when the unexpected arrival of the Cardinal Guard chapter, accompanied by a sacred band of the Adeptus Sororitas Order of the Black Sepulchre, bearing the holy relic known as the Book of Tears, were able to prevent the loss of tens of billions of lives on Agathon Prime. The Cardinal Guard was able to lead a fresh assault as further Adeptus Astartes forces, including the Iron Hands and the Stormlords, as well as the Adeptus Mechanicus reinforcements arrived. They were able to fight a brutal battle of tank and gunship clashes across the soaring metal canyons which creased the moon's surface, and chamber by chamber Zone Mortalis actions to purge the moon of the shadow that had befallen it. The traitor Marines inflicted fearful losses on their besiegers before they were driven back to the deep darkness of the warp. In the wake of this retreat, all life was purged from the moon before it was given back to the hands of the machine cult for tech exorcisms and eventual reclamation. The Tenebree appear again and again scattered throughout history, at the Luxor Drift Genocide, the Fall of Yun, the Plague of Madness, and the Karthath Iconoclasm, right up to their most recent sighting during the Orpheus Crisis. They always appear during times of terror and discord. Always, their presence is a herald of suffering and the nightmarish distortion of reality as a wave of suicidal despair and insanity going before them like a baleful shadow. Where they go, light is consumed by darkness, a darkness which hungers for life and whispers blasphemies to eat at the sanity of most righteous men. So insidious is their attack upon the will and the soul, that when the Tenebree attack in full force, for theirs is a full panoply of war, including many ancient relics of battle and demon-tainted engines, that little resistance can be offered against the onslaught, as fortress worlds and bastions thought secure against the might of the armies fall in mere hours to the dark butchery. Another unique quality of the Tenebree is the Fellblade tanks in their arsenal. These ancient patterned super heavy battle tanks used to be a common weapon for the Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade, but the standard template construct design has since been long lost. What makes the Fellblade so dangerous is their armament. They are equipped with a panoply of weapons, all but unknown in the 42nd millennium. The tank's primary weapon is a turret-mounted twin-linked accelerator cannon, a vacuum-based system that uses a complex overpressure mechanism to propel heavy shells with greater force than would be possible with a conventional cannon. So effective is this system that very little recoil is produced, making the weapon extremely accurate and stable. These once holy and venerated engines of war are now twisted and corrupted by the forces of chaos. So powerful are these weapons that a single tank could take down an Imperial Titan. When the Tenebree attack, an eerie hush descends over the battlefield. Carrion birds cease their calling, and chittering insects fall silent. In this void of sound, soldiers can hear their own heartbeat, their blood pulsing faster as as fear sinks its cold talons into their souls. As a soldier prepares for battle, he sees something move at the corner of his vision, but it is gone by the time he turns his head. Another hears a sound so otherworldly that she cannot be sure her mind is not playing tricks on her. Then a pair of glowing eyes peer out from the battlefield to look hungrily at its prey. More than any other Chaos Warband, the Tenebree use the void of space as a weapon. They seldom clash with an enemy that can match them in battle, instead only picking at the weak points of the opposing force. And they have become masters at drawing out their enemy and leading them into uncharted space. There the Tenebree allow precision strikes and terror to whittle away at the enemy. They simply wait patiently for the right moment when they can finish off what remains of the foe. The Tenebree seem to have an instinctual understanding of the void. They know the locations of countless hideouts within the spiraling nebulas and dust clouds of the Veiled region. By allowing the enemy to give chase through their domain, they disorient their foe and render them defenseless, even when their military might is far greater than their own. This mastery of the void has also made the Warband guides for the other Chaos forces. Other warlords and Chaos sorcerers present gruesome offerings to the Warband in exchange for safe and speedy passages through the void. To the Tenebree, there is no boundary that cannot be broken, and no route too chaotic that should be ignored. Their realm is darkness, and darkness is their home. Amongst the hundreds of Chaos Space Marine warbands, none are as savage or as bloodthirsty as the Butcher Horde. No sort of negotiation can save a world from the clutches of this frenzied band of Khorne berserkers. Their appearance is a guaranteed war of attrition that will only end after every river runs red with blood, and the entrails of the populace cover the streets. Surprisingly, the warband is led by one of the most sadistic Chaos Space Marines, Karn the Betrayer. The band came together during the invasion of the Diamor system. Multiple coalitions of the once proud World Eater Trader legions were rallied together by the schemes of Abaddon the Despoiler. The Chaos forces were confronted by the valiant Blood Angels chapter, and seeking to collect the head of the most worthy son of Sanguinius, Karn the Betrayer separated from the rest of the invasion force and assaulted the planet of Amathal. Karn's intentions weren't to forge a vast army of conquest to aid him in this quest. In his mind, all those who needed others to fight in their battles were weaklings and undeserving of victory. The truth was that the Betrayer's brutal deeds and legend had spread through the ranks of the Chaos forces like ripples upon the surface of a blood pool. So spectacular was the carnage that he created, so monstrous the butchery of his passing, that Khorne's faithful were drawn in his wake. At first Karn fought alone, then at the head of a warband of Khorne berserkers. The slaughter that they caused on the planet weakened the barrier between the immaterium and the material realm so much that the Blood Angels were forced to call for aid from the demon-hunting Grey Knights chapter. After slaughtering his way across the sundered reach, the Betrayer had found himself the master of a murderous army. By the time he had exterminated all life on the Pandora colonies, a whole fleet of spike-prowled warships were in his command. Their holds crammed with maniacs, murderers, and hellish war engines. This was not power that Karn had sought, but neither did he cast it aside. Like any true servant of Khorne, the Betrayer knew a deadly weapon when he saw one. If it was the Blood God's will that he wield this mighty implement of death, then who was he to question it? And this is how the Butcher Horde came to be, a terrifying engine of war. Great masses of Khorne berserkers formed its thundering heart, the warriors from dozens of distant warbands drawn together in the name of unholy murder. Only the overriding will of the Betrayer kept these psychotic hordes from killing each other. And even then, berserker blood was still spilled every single day. Karn cared nothing for the lives of his followers, and so did nothing to intercede. So long as they were strong enough to murder the enemy, it mattered nothing to him if the weak were weeded out by the strong in the meantime. Every warrior slain was just another skull for the Skull Throne. Though the berserkers of Karn's horde followed him as an avatar of the Blood God's will, many amongst their ranks saw him as both a hated rival and the ultimate skull to claim in order to win Khorne's favor. Such was the way for the Blood God's servants. It was a rare day that the berserker did not have to strike down a handful of his own followers as a result of their frenzied attempts on his life. Many more servants of the Blood God followed in Karn's wake, lending their strength and numbers to the Butcher Horde. Seething masses of Chaos cultists screamed praise to Khorne as they followed their demigod of slaughter into battle. Demon princes led their own bands of followers to war in the Betrayer's name, bringing with them rumbling battle tanks and deranged hellbrutes that lent the Horde heavy firepower. Most terrifying of all were the massed demon engines of the Butcher Horde. Amongst the packs of prowling mauler fiends and defilers towered super-heavy abominations such as the scuttling brass scorpions and the Lord of Skulls. Driven by the caged fury of Khorne's most powerful demons, these engines of annihilation were nearly as deadly as the betrayer himself. After amassing such an impressive army, Karn launched a campaign known as the Blood Torrent War against the Factorums of the Imperial world of Ulsa. During the conflict, his mighty chain axe, Gorechild, became jammed in the hull of an Adeptus Mechanicus war machine, and his plasma pistol fractured from overuse. The betrayer turned the sharp edges and hard surfaces of the Factorum to his own violent ends, impaling screaming Imperial guardsmen on grinding gears, or flaying the skins from their faces by pressing them on howling conveyors. Such was the carnage that the enormous Manufactorum ground to a halt, its workings clogged with the mangled remains of over 1,000 pulverized corpses. The most current conflict the Butcher Horde has been a part of was the invasion of Tazdrak, where the Alpha Legion faced competition from Karn and his army, who were attempting to slaughter the Psyker, providing a beacon of hope for the surrounding region during the Great Night. When a contingent of the Imperial Fist Astartes arrived on the planet to aid the beleaguered defenders, Saint Celestine also appeared from the warp to aid during this crucial fight against the Butcher Horde. She secured the Psyker and valiantly faced Karn the Betrayer, but was defeated and slain by the vicious Khorne Berserker in battle. The Butcher Horde has become so large that it has absorbed many of the other Khorne Berserker warbands, such as the Wrathful Dead, the Sons of Slaughter, the Oblivion Butchers, the Life Slayers, Forge of Hate, the Endless Murder, Bloody Path, the Black Feasts, and Angron's Fury. The only other Khorne warband that has remained autonomous from the Butcher Horde is the Eights Guard. The Chaos Space Marine warband known as the Eights Guard is a fanatically unhinged Khorne demonkin group that believes itself to be the only true disciples of the Blood God. This claim is reinforced by the warband's sadistic and violent history. Like most Khorne berserkers, the Eights Guard doesn't know or even care about their origins. They would much rather shout about their gory achievements while hacking away at whoever is unlucky enough to be in front of them. The name of the warband derives from the rituals each member must undertake in order to be inducted into the group. Each traitor must prove their battle prowess during 8 battles. A bloodthirster of the 3rd rank, named Gakarax, sits ever in judgment of the worshippers of Khorne. If he approves of a warrior's efforts, then at the battle's end, he reaches through the veil to carve a vivid scar in the warrior's flesh. One by one, these bloody wounds form runes of Khorne, marking the warrior as worthy to fight alongside the demon's cohort. Should an aspirant ever fail to earn his scar, he would gladly fall upon his own roaring chainblade as an act of penance. The sheer zealotry of the Eights Guard draws many Khorne berserkers to their banner, for this level of fanaticism echoes their own. Their devotion is so strong, they can draw Gakarax followers through the veil with ease, and have fought in the demigod's shadow on many occasions. For example, on the planet of Skardafell, while the White Scar's 3rd Company fought a guerrilla war with the war hosts of Craftworld Ulthwé, into the conflict plunged the Khorne demonkins of the Eights Guard. Among the Fire Swamps, the warband brought forth half of their chosen demons in a single day, the Khorne worshippers slaughtered with abandon. Many years later, the Eights Guard fought alongside the Wrath upon the Tau colony world of Shaunash. The aliens fought bravely, deploying incredible technologies to blast great holes in the Khorne ranks, yet the Tau were still outnumbered, and despite their heroism, they were overrun. Crazed with battle lust, the 2 demonkin hosts then fell upon one another, battling in frenzy until both almost were wiped out. This warband has even been led by the bloodthirster Gakarax himself, leading the Eights Guards and the Skullsworn against the Imperial Fortress world of Elmarid. The demonkin faced elements of the Imperial Fist and the Raven Guard, reinforced by several regiments of Tempestus Scions. The war was long and bloody, but one by one the demonkin reconsecrated the planet's furnace temples in bloody ceremonies of ritual sacrifice. As the last shrine fell, Elmarid was dragged whole into the warp, claimed by Khorne as a new demon world. And those were 40 facts on the Khorne warbands. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now I need you guys to comment down in the comment section below which Chaos God would you guys like to hear about next. Would you like Tzeentch warbands, Slaanesh warbands, or Nurgle warbands? And if you guys have suggestions for any other topics, let me know what they are in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first, and then